Hey, this is Josh from Hopesfall, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. This is Keith.
And Tommy.
And we are back, and it's a brand new year and a brand new show. Folks, strap in because we've got Will Benoit from SOM on the show. Their new album, The Shape of Everything, comes out January 21st on Pelagic Records. We have heard it. We love it. We have spoken to Will, and this is a great conversation. You're going to love it.
He was a really great interview. And on top of that, had some really interesting things to say about the recording process. Let's just put it out there. There is some interesting things about the drums on this record that you will not believe.
Yes. If you heard our New Year's Eve special where we counted down our top 10, you heard the advance clues to today's show. You're going to love it. It was just a great conversation and very nice to talk to Will. Now, some show business. Folks, we're in a new year. And we want to continue growing the show. So we are going to need your help. Here's what you can do to support us. Number one, follow us on everything. YouTube, The New Scene. Facebook, The New Scene. Twitter and Instagram, New Scene Pod. We definitely want a lot of followers there. And twitch.tv/The New Scene. I occasionally go on there and play video games. And of course, support our sponsor, Iodine Recordings. Here's a couple Iodine updates for you. Garrison has some vinyl shipping now. If you order the Garrison vinyl, you'll be getting it soon. There's only a few of the first press remaining, and Iodine will be dropping 2 releases in January. Get on the email list at iodinerecords.com for the latest and greatest updates. Iodine is also announcing 5 new signings in 2022, Tommy. How about that?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
When Casey first started talking to us about this, I really was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be a lot of him, re-releasing some of the older stuff, and then maybe doing, a couple new acts here and there. Five new releases coming in 5 new signings coming in 2022.
It was funny when we had him on the show the first time, and he said he was just doing some of the re-releases of the classic Iodine material. We hadn't spoken to him in a long time. And then I saw that he signed a band, and I'm like so self-centered. I'm like, how could he not have told us about this? Like, why didn't he? Did he lie to us? Did he tell us about? But that's just ridiculous thinking.
I was going to say we do a lot of that sometimes. Like we have this conversation with ourselves before we have the conversation with a person.
Yeah.
And you realize you've already had the argument, or like you've already had confronted them about something, and you just go, "Hey, how you doing?" And they're like, "You seem off. You okay?" And you're like, "Yeah, because we're in an argument."
I had an entire imaginary conversation with you in my head, and now I'm feeling feelings about it.
Exactly. Oh, it's so terrible.
Oh, another thing, Tommy. Jerome's Dream presents. It's finally on streaming services. I just randomly checked yesterday, and it has dropped. And I know the original came out in 2001, but I'm considering the re-release one of the best of 2021 as well, for sure. I was listening to that yesterday, and I love that record.
It is really good. I like the trajectory of Jerome's Dream. Like everything they put out has had a distinctive kind of new sound to it, and I'm always anxious to hear what they do next, and Presents is definitely one of my favorites.
Well, folks, we're in a brand new year, 2022. It's happening. It's starting. 2 of the records I'm looking forward to the most, they both come out on my birthday, Tommy. That's got to be a good sign, right?
Yes.
Number 1, SOM, The Shape of Everything, which we've heard in advance of. It's really, really good. That comes out, once again, folks, that comes out January 21st on Pelagic Records. And Anxious, Little Greenhouse, comes out on 1/21 on Run for Cover Records. I'm really looking forward to that. That song, Call From You, I've listened to that probably 100 times.
I was going to say, I've ran that single into the ground.
Yeah.
That's one of those ones where I just go, I'll listen to that again. That's one of those bands that they just have such a great sound. Like the way they make music kind of reminds me of so many of the bands I grew up on, but it's not one distinctive style. Like it's just it's like a mix up, mash up of like so many of the different things I grew up listening to, and I'm anxious to see what it sounds like.
Heyo, that was good. No, that's a perfect description. It reminds me of the music of my youth that gave me such a like beautiful feeling. Think Texas Is the Reason and rival schools and all that good stuff. Like you're young, you're doing exciting things, you're discovering exciting things. It sounds like that without being a retread. It's fresh, it's new.
Exactly. There's a band that used to be on Doghouse. They really remind me of. They were called Joshua. And it has that same type of feeling. When I hear that, I go, I love just there's one guitar part for some reason that must line up similarly to a Joshua song, because every time I hear it, I just go, oh, I got to go listen to that Joshua song.
There's some more new music out there. Drowning Man is back today with a new song. It's called Navigating Grief and Loss in a Pre-Apocalyptic Landscape. This is really good. What did you think, Tommy?
I really like it. And here's the biggest thing about it. It has the distinctive Drowning Man sound. Like it sounds like they've never left.
Yeah, this is like classic How They Light Cigarettes or Still Loves You era Drowning Man. Excellent riffage, good heavy parts, good clean parts. It's classic Drowning Man. And it has the classic long Drowning Man song title, which I love.
Yeah.
They have one of my favorite song titles ever. It's off of Rock and Roll Killing Machine. The song is called If God Loves a Winner, He's Going to Want to Fuck Me in a Minute.
That's crazy. He always like that's one of the things is with, I guess Drowning Man has kind of always encapsulated like a bunch of the different parts of the kind of like growing up, like the music that we've had growing up, and that writing those extremely long song titles is just one of those parts.
Yeah.
But like every time I see a long song title, I always think like, remember Neil Perry used to do that? Neil Perry would have like really like obnoxiously long song titles. It's like, why are you doing this? But they're always tongue in cheek. Like there was always some type of pun in there or some type of inside joke. It was all I just love that. I think it's so funny.
Whenever I see the really long song title, I just think Drowning Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone did that before, but for our era, they definitely originated that. Well, that's it for segment 1, folks. Check in for segment 3. We're going to talk about what we got coming up for the year. We're going to talk about our New Year's Eve recaps. That's going to be exciting. But right now, we're going to talk to Will Benoit from SOM. Enjoy. All right, folks, we're here now with Will Benoit. Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's great to have you here. We're a big fan of all the music that you've done, and SOM has a new album coming out next month, which is very exciting. But first, Will, we've got to ask you, how are you doing today?
Doing all right today. I want to thank you guys for having me. I am a fan of the podcast as well. I like how you guys handle interviews, so this should be fun. Today, I'm doing okay, man. I got a COVID booster on Tuesday, and I felt fine. And then, like middle of the night, I was shivering out of control, could not get out of bed until noon. I had kind of a rough night last night, but I'm doing okay. I just cracked a beer, so I'll be good.
Oh, excellent. COVID is ravaging New York City again. We just recorded Monday night and our guest had COVID. It's all over the place, and I really hope I don't get it.
Yeah, stay home.
Yeah, my school is currently shut down for COVID.
So Will, let's get to know you a little bit. You grew up in Connecticut?
I did, yeah.
Excellent. Where at?
I grew up in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. Went to college at Emerson in Boston, lived up there for about 10 years, and then my wife and I bought a house in Clinton, Connecticut about 12 years ago.
I read about you, and it seems like the defining musical point in your life was when a friend left a 4-track at your house in high school, and this is kind of how you got into recording and everything, yes?
Yeah, totally. Yep. Yeah, my buddy growing up, Chris McMurray, shout out to him. he was my next door neighbor, and we sort of figured out how to record music together with like a tape deck and microphones and headphones. And we were just kind of always playing around with that stuff. And then he got a 4-track when, I don't know, we must have been 14, 15. And there was no going back.
So what were you into at that point? Give us a bit of history as far as your musical trajectory and the types of things you're into.
Sure. I think some of the first stuff I got into was like Michael Jackson, probably, like pop stuff. I like Beach Boys. Growing up, my dad was into that kind of stuff. A couple of my buddies got into like Metallica and metal, Megadeth, stuff like that. That was a pretty early influence. And then the same buddy, Chris, and I were really into like industrial stuff like Nine Inch Nails, Ministry. That kind of blossomed into the sort of the new metal stuff that was happening around that time. I know you guys have talked about Korn on the podcast. So yeah, I mean, that's seminal when you're 14 years old.
Yeah.
Your friend Phil Jameson got us onto Korn,
Yeah, that's right.
And the live video from Woodstock '99. It became a key talking point in the show.
Yeah, I watched that after the episode you guys did, and it holds up, man.
It really does.
I show it to strangers at this point.
I love that.
Yeah, I still go back to it every now and again, and just the intro and how they like drag it out for like another measure or two. I love it. I'm sold.
Yeah, I feel like it speaks to our childhood in a way that not a lot of other music does.
So you have the 4-track. You're in high school.
Yeah.
What kind of recording are you doing? Are you recording with yourself? Are you recording with other people?
Yeah, I had a couple bands that I was in. At that time, I think my parents saw in me that I was really interested in it. So, like, I was a drummer at that point. I didn't play guitar or anything, but my parents seemed to understand that it's something I was obviously really into. So they got me guitar lessons for a little bit, and the dude that I took lessons with he also understood that I was into recording. It was like, okay, well, like try to, play chords into your sampler, into your 4-track, and then try to play over that by yourself. And like, all these sort of like little more esoteric stuff when you're 15, but in hindsight, it's like, oh, that he totally understood what I was trying to do. Yeah, just like a lot of playing with drummers. Like Godflesh was another big influence. Just like, whoa, you can make some stuff really heavy with a drum machine and a guitar and a distortion pedal. So it was a lot of just like figuring out how sonics work and, sitting alone in my parents' basement, figuring stuff out.
Tell us about your journey with underground music. Did you have an entry point or a show that blew you away? Were you into hardcore or post-rock or other stuff?
That's interesting. It was kind of a slow burn, I guess. Like there was being from a small town in Connecticut, the scenes pretty much bled into each other. I mean, everything was like Hatebreed, Earth Crisis. Like that was kind of the thing around here. Mm-hmm. But like, we'd be able to, like, I was in like a quote unquote industrial band with drum machines, and we'd play with hardcore bands, and like it was cool because the scene was so small. There'd be 25, 50 people there, and it all kind of like bled together. As far as seeing a show, I think the first thing that really, it's kind of cheesy, but like I saw Slayer with Fear Factory and Kilgore in like 90, what would that have been, like 97? And that was like, it was the biggest like, underground show I had been to at that point. And it was at the Palladium. And that was just like, holy shit, like people really care about this stuff and they're passionate about it like I am. This is crazy. And that was actually right before I moved to Boston. And it all kind of clicked mentally at that point.
Nice. Yeah. So you moved to Boston. What did you get involved with when you moved down there?
Well, I was, the first year or so, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of hanging out, making friends, trying to figure it out. I think when things started changing for me is when I got an internship at Hydra Head. And I mean, that was definitely like the moment where it was like the underground thing really started to make sense. Like going into that office a couple times a week and seeing like Cave In and ISIS and Piebald and Converge and all these bands just like doing exactly what I wanted to be doing. And just saying they were, like, fuck you, like we're doing this ourselves. We're doing this with our friends. That was an eye opener for sure.
So you were working at Hydra Head during what sounds like the heyday of Hydra Head.
Yeah, it was. I lucked out for sure.
Yeah, they were everything. Botch, ISIS, everything. What did you do at Hydra Head?
Oh, I mean, I assembled records. I, opened demos for them. I'd run to the post office and mail out mail order, go out to lunch with them if I was lucky. Just like total intern, whatever they needed done, I would do. Like my claim to fame in that office, my joke is like, I'm the one that sent the ISIS demo to Ipecac, Mike Patton. Like Aaron spent a bunch of time putting together this whole press kit, and I was like, holy shit, I get to mail something to Mike Patton. Like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done.
Do you ever go to people and say like, yeah, I got ISIS signed to Epicac. That was me.
No, God, no. I mean, even at the time, I was very aware of like just being, it was an honor to be in such good company.
So you attend Emerson College, you graduate with a degree in visual and media arts, and you also took some classes at Berkeley, right?
I did, yeah. You guys did your homework. It was like just more production classes, audio technology, history of rock music. What else did I take there? Just like, more nerd classes. I was full in at that point, man. I was like, whatever I could get my hands on. Music synth class, I think I took.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was blown away. I didn't know. I was going to college for like economics and I was horrible at math. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't even really realize you could take music classes.
Well, to be fair, you were probably smarter.
Well, not exactly, but once I figured out, hey, I'm going to take some music classes, I kind of failed out, but then I went on tour with a friend's band, so it all worked out. But what was your plan? What did you want to do, Will?
A more successful version of what I'm doing, I guess, would be the honest answer.
Like of what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, playing in bands, making records, working on soundtracks here and there, like just being a working musician was always kind of the dream.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that the bottom would fall out before I was 25.
Well, explain.
Well, just like in the year 1999, a band could sell CDs and make a living, and nowadays it's like few and far between.
Yeah.
But I mean, not complaining. Obviously, I could change trajectory wherever I wanted, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
So you founded Radar Recordings in 2003, yes?
So when we started that was a record label, very much in the spirit of Hydra Head and Big Wheel. That was me and actually Mike, who's in SOM now. Together, we were just like he was interning at like TBT Records and doing some bigger stuff, and sort of like what I was seeing in Boston and what he was seeing in New York. He was living in Boston, but working for a label from New York, and we were just like, holy shit, we can do this. Like, this is the time to do this. So we started putting out friends' bands and just trying to figure out how we could all tour together and book cool shows and just have fun.
So how do you get the label started? I mean, I guess you had a little bit of experience working at Hydra Head and seeing how things work. Do you have friends who help out with graphic design? How does it come together? Yeah,
I guess, I mean, it was a lot of like learning on our feet. Like Mike was really interested in graphic design, so like he sort of like started doing that stuff pretty early on. Yeah, man, it was seat of our pants. We didn't know, like we ostensibly kind of knew what we were doing, but we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were just sort of like, oh, maybe this person will distro our records, or like, oh, maybe Newberry Comics will carry this. Like, how do we hustle our way and make ourselves look legit even when we're not?
You just have to fake it until you make it.
Totally, dude, totally.
Which is hard sometimes because I find myself in a lot of situations where I'm just like too honest, or I'm like, hey, I have no clue what I'm doing.
Oh, same. That's something, I mean, I'll admit it here, is like, I'm a quiet person. So when I start saying like, no, you don't, like, I'm full of shit, like, I'm just pretending I'm trying to figure this out too, I just shut down and I'm quiet, and people are like, oh, maybe he knows what he's doing. It works to my advantage.
It really does. That's always my thing too. Like, I'll say too much, and then I'm like, mental note, next time say nothing. Because if you say nothing, you'll seem like you know what you're talking about more.
It works. Yeah.
It really does.
Well, around this time period, I'm curious to ask you guys, because now you're associated with Iodine.
Yes.
How did you guys get tied in with the podcast?
We did this podcast for about a year and a half, right? And we used to be the Northeast scene.
Yep.
And then Casey was a guest on the show, right? And I kind of stayed in touch with him, Casey from Iodine Recordings. We stayed in touch, and then eventually he was like, hey, we should do like I think he mentioned some type of partnership, and I'm like so suspicious of everything where I just don't realize what's going on. I was kind of like, nah, I don't want to do that. I didn't say that to him, but I just thought it. And then he mentioned it again, and I was like, holy shit, wait, a label wants to partner with us. So after about 6 or 7 months of planning, here we are.
Cool. That's awesome. So were you familiar with him back in the day, or the label?
Actually, no. I told Casey this when he was on the show. I hadn't heard really any. I had heard of some of the Iodine bands like Garrison and Gregor Samson stuff, but I was not like intimately familiar with the label.
I had only heard of them because of that comp. And I think that was really just because of Casey. Like,
right on. Yeah, that was another label back in the day, like seeing like National Blue. I can't remember who else was at that shit. Like this tiny little basement show that was just packed out with like 50 kids in Boston. And like, we're living in a very special place right now. So shout out to Iodine too. That was quite a special label. I'm happy he's bringing it back.
Absolutely, especially us. So, did you have a lot of exposure to the incredible musicians living in Boston? I mean, you've got Converge, you've got Cave-In, you've got ISIS, you've got everybody else. Did you gig with them? Did you know them? Did you work with them?
I mean, they were kind of the next, that we were like sophomores when they were seniors. Like we were just like, hey guys, how you doing? Like,
Yeah.
talk to the dudes in Cave-In a little bit, but not, they were, they were rock stars by the time we were around.
Yeah, they were already off on the next thing.
Yeah, big time.
So Constance, now this is a great band. This was formed in 2003, yes?
Yes, yeah.
Let's talk about that. How does this come together? Who are some of your influences? And I love to know that because I really connect with this music. It's like right up my alley. So I'd like to see if my favorites line up with yours.
Oh, yeah, that'll be fun. So funny enough, the three original members of Constance were in a pop punk band with another guitar player, singer, and we won a battle of the bands as a pop punk band. And we were kind of just like, all right, like that's all you can really do with a pop punk band, right? Like this is not really doing it for any of us. So we decided, the drummer Duncan and I, who's now in SOM, we just started like writing sort of like more out there, to us, more out there sort of stuff. Like there was a band, The Cancer Conspiracy, around at that time that was a big influence, who actually the guitar player I run the studio with here now, Daryl, they were a big influence. Like Hum was a big influence.
Yes.
Like, yeah. Yes, the band Yes was actually a really big influence. Close to the Edge record was like something we listened to a lot. As not so much as like we need to be like prog pioneer geniuses, but just like, whoa, like you're writing like really long, intricate songs that are still interesting. And like that was sort of before the post-rock thing opened up. So like, we sort of became a post-rock band without really meaning to, if that makes sense. But I think that those were, there were other influences for sure, but those were the big ones where it was like, can we do this like slowcore thing, but make it like mathy and sort of bigger?
Nice. Yeah. Hum is probably the most significant influence in all of my guitar writing.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. Awesome. Yeah, they're one of the best. You like their last record?
Oh, God, yeah. It was, we had like a special segment on the show where we brought in a special guest to talk about it, and it was just phenomenal. And I love that they just surprise released it out of nowhere. Like it lives literally just one day to the next. No new Hum record, new Hum record.
Yeah.
I fell out of my chair.
Yeah, same.
All right, so we've got Constance together. Now, you said you became a post-rock band without even really realizing it. So had you not been into post-rock at this time?
No, I was like, I listened to Mogwai a lot. I remember I saw Explosions in the Sky probably around the time we had already started, but like that, it didn't click in my head until we had already been writing stuff. It was like, holy shit, we kind of fit into this category, which is cool.
Did you get more influenced by post-rock later? Because I would say I discovered post-rock around 2006. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
And I just became obsessed with it. It was like, probably the main thing I listened to for the next decade until now, I guess.
Yeah. It's tough. I don't know. It kind of all intertwined together because I feel like we were conscious of it. And, like we were friends with Caspian and playing shows with them. And like we did a split with them. We were on the Mylene Sheath for a couple records. So like we were very intertwined with it. But I think we were always sort of like, what can we do that makes us not post-rock? Probably to our detriment at a lot of points. Yeah, it's always complicated when you get a label put on your music and you kind of want to fight it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In hindsight, we probably should have just rolled with it and embraced it more. But yeah, we were like, how can we be more angular? How can we, sort of have odd meters here that don't give you that like climax that post-rock does so well?
Let's talk about the early days of Constance. Now,
Sure.
Did you start touring pretty early? Were you just playing in the Northeast? Like, how did things build?
Yeah, so that goes back to the label we started. Like we kind of wanted to give ourselves some authenticity by having a nice website and surrounding ourselves with other bands. So, like we could reach out to a venue and be like, hey, we have these 3-4 bands with this legit website and we're a label and like, let's do a showcase. So we ended up being able to book pretty good shows in New York and Boston and a couple college shows here and there. And pretty quickly we realized it was like, all right, we can probably book a bigger tour than this. So I think we did like a couple weeks across Canada. And then Junius, who was, label mates at that point, I think they were the first one to do like a national tour. And they found a booking agent that was going to work with them. And he also worked with us. So like, yeah, pretty quickly it escalated to like, how long can we go out on the road for? Like a month at a time, 6 weeks at a time.
Junius, that's another great band that I discovered through Spotify radio. Like they just popped on one day and I was like, whoa, who's this? These guys are great.
Yeah,
I mean that's Mike and Joel from SOM were in that band.
Wow, so we've got a dream team lineup in SOM. I see.
Many years in the making.
Yes. So Constance is touring. We're out on the road. We're getting things done. Now, I read an interesting fact about the band. You converted a 66-passenger school bus to run on vegetable oil.
We sure did, yeah. And lived in it for the better part of a year, and then over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, spent a lot of time in that thing.
How do you do that? How do you figure out how to do that?
Our bass player Orion was friends with a punk band called I'm blanking on the name, Fruit Salad. That was the name of the band, and they had done it, and I was like, bullshit, there's no way a band can do that. Like, this is not possible. He's like, they did it. And we started doing research, and he was talking to his friends in that band, and you can do it. You can still do it. It's like the original diesel engines were actually designed to run on peanut oil, so it's pretty simple. Like, you got to know basic mechanics, and once you figure that out, it's like, holy shit, why isn't everyone doing this? It's disgusting, but it's basically free.
So you're telling me that we could convert all automobiles to run on vegetable oil now if we really wanted to?
Diesel engines, yeah.
So we have to be careful, because if the oil companies hear this episode of the podcast, they might come and hunt us down, like in that Keanu Reeves movie with Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, perhaps. And if you want to cut this part, that's okay.
So you're telling me all right, so once you get this conversion done, do you just roll up to a grocery store and buy some vegetable oil and dump it in the bus?
Here's the beauty. Back then, this is before, quote unquote, they figured it out. So you just roll up to a restaurant and say, hi, you have a bin full of grease in the back, right? And they say, yeah, we have to pay X amount of dollars per gallon to get it removed every month. And we say, how about if we make no mess? We go back there for about an hour and we just take it from you. And they say, are you kidding me? You want free dinner? Like, yeah, great. We'll be back there for an hour. Just bring us some food. Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy time. Like, it doesn't work like that anymore. Like,
so you almost have a self-sustaining system here for tour. You're in a bus that runs on vegetable oil. You're getting free meals from restaurants, and you can sleep on the bus because it's a bus.
Yeah, we built bunks into it too. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yep.
So you were out on the road for an entire year?
10 months with like a 4-week break in the middle.
How old were you at this time?
25.
So was it still fun at this point? Did you just want to be out playing all the time?
Yeah, it was mostly fun. I mean, like when you're doing that level of touring, it was tough, but in hindsight, it was amazing.
I did a couple tours. I think the longest one was about a month. And when you're gone, you really miss home. Yeah. But then when you come home, you're like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how am I supposed to just go back to normal life? It's a weird dual thing.
Totally.
Now, Constance, this band is still together, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you guys just came out with a record last year.
Yep.
Devotion.
Yep. Yeah, we're still buddies. We text back and forth pretty much every day.
When did you decide you wanted to start what became SOM, and how did that come together?
Okay, yeah, sure. So Constance slowed down around 2010, 2011, 2012. Everybody was just sort of getting their lives, because we had toured so much. Everybody just got to the point, it was like, we need to get our lives together. Like, we can't just live on the road anymore and not make any money. If you can live on the road, you got to make money. You can't just break even. So I started building the studio here. That's when I actually built the studios, when my wife and I bought a house, 2010, 2011.
Yes, and you're talking about the Radar Studio. That is your studio, founded in 2010.
Yep. So I started trying to get that together and trying to figure out how I could actually make money as a musician, continuing on with that and not being in a van all the time or bus. So yeah, I did that. and was recording bands and sort of like trying to get other projects off the ground. It didn't, nothing. It's one of those things like when you have, a tiniest bit of success with a band and you're like, oh, I can just flip this around and do this again. No problem.
Yeah.
It's hard, man. So, tried writing in a bunch of different styles, tried kind of figuring out a different sound, it took years, man. I put out several records. I produced and mixed a ton of records. And yeah, I mean, I kind of got to the point where it's like, I want to do something. I think it was, can't remember exactly what was the impetus, but it was just like, I want to just do something with my friends that's going to be fun and heavy, and I know I can execute it well. And then I went on tour with Rosetta playing bass for a couple tours and was like, yeah, this is closer to the thing that I want to be doing. So that kind of became the impetus for SOM, like sort of get it going. And then we finished the record, still didn't move very quickly. And then we finally got a couple offers to do some shows and a tour, and we needed another guitar player. So, we added our friend Joel, and then longer story, we needed another guitar player for another tour that ended up not happening. So then we added Mike, and then another tour that actually happened. We were like, oh, now we have these dudes that want to play with us. Like we should just bring them in. So then we became this 5-piece, and it sort of blossomed from there.
Yeah. I first caught the band opening for Caspian at St. Vitus.
Oh, nice. You were there?
Yeah.
That was a great show.
That was back in 2018.
That was our first show.
That was your first show?
Yep.
So I've seen your first show.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you guys looked pretty polished already.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. I've been a fan of the band ever since I saw that performance.
That's awesome, man.
So how much work had gone into the band at that point?
I literally had gotten off of tour with Rosetta 2 days before that.
Wow.
So we showed up at the studio here. I want to say maybe even Caspian was here practicing too. So they played, because Justin that was among his first shows playing drums for them, but he's also playing bass for us. So I think that the idea was like everybody would just get together here, hang out for a couple of days and practice. So I think they played for a night or two, and then we had a day to practice. So yeah, I think we played the set, handful of times.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, experience goes a long way. So wait, the songs were already done? The people had to come in and just learn the set?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point we had already recorded the record. Like we knew what we were doing. Yeah, I don't think it was out yet, but yeah, we had put it together, and the plan was that we would be a band. But yeah, we had not rehearsed at all.
I see. So it was a record first, band second type of situation.
Yeah, we didn't want it to be, but it just that's the way it happened. And it's funny enough that we intended for the band to be like, let's not be one of those bands that just puts out a record and then goes out and plays. Like, let's go out and play and tighten these songs up. But our drummer Duncan was getting married around that time, and then he and I both had our first child around that time, and then Justin had joined Caspian, so it just became this thing where it was like, if we're ever going to make this a band, we need to just kind of go by the seat of our pants a little more.
Now, the debut record, The Fall, which came out in 2018, this is a very, very strong debut. I love the sound you guys have developed. I think it's pretty unique, and it reminds me of, there's hum influence, of course, but imagine hum tuned down a full step. And some riffage even reminds me of Cranberries or good alternative stuff.
Love it. Yeah. I love the Cranberries.
Did you have to shop the record around a lot to get any label interest? I would imagine not.
No, we tried a lot, actually.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We kind of figured we've been in this band, and this band. Want to put out our record? No one wanted to.
Really?
Yep.
That surprises me.
I mean, I get it. It was people nowadays, especially, they want to see, okay, go out and tour. What can you do?
Right.
At that point, we hadn't done anything. And, in hindsight, I totally get it. But yeah, we self-released it. And that was another thing, coming off the Rosetta tour, it's those dudes have just been DIY monsters for so long. Being in a van with them every day was just fuck it, man. If somebody doesn't want to do it, just do it yourself. It's oh, they're so right. So yeah, we just pressed it. We just pressed it, hired a publicist, and was I think people will like this. So it's good to hear. Still it's surprising to be oh wow, people actually do like it. Great.
Did it get picked up by somebody eventually?
Nope.
So it's still self-released?
Yeah. We actually just pressed 200 of them for the Catatonia tour that got canceled. I'm looking at a giant bunch of boxes of records.
Oh, man. What happened to that tour? COVID concerns?
Yeah, COVID, yep. On that note, I'm cracking a beer.
Yes, take the edge off.
Yes.
This COVID thing, I would say last week in New York City, the panic started up again, and the mask debate started up again on Twitter. And how could you host an event at a time like this? Discourse started again on Twitter, and so I just stopped looking at Twitter because I was like, I can't do this again. I cannot do this all again.
Yeah, it's always a good call to just skip Twitter.
Exactly.
I have 4 Twitter accounts.
List them off.
I can't use any of them. I don't know how. I sign up and then I figure out. Like I'm like, all right, there's way too much information on here, and I don't like it. Like most of the stuff I'm seeing is just people bickering, and then I quit. And then a few months later, I'll go, oh, I'll try that again.
So it's like at Tommy 1, at Tommy 2, at Tommy 3.
It's always a random name that I don't recognize, but once a quarter, I'll tell Tommy that there's something on Twitter he has to look at, and he doesn't remember any of his other screen names. So then he has to make a new one to get back on it.
I just got to the point where like people just repost anything from important from on Instagram. They just take screenshots of Twitter and put it on there. I can look at that. That's a much less invasive way to do things.
Speaking of pandemic, SOM put out a new EP, Awake, during the pandemic, which is another hit record as far as I'm concerned. Did you record it pre-pandemic? Was this recorded during the pandemic? How did that come together?
Yeah, so we were set up to start working on the full length, but like lockdown happened. I think the following weekend we were supposed to start doing drums for the full length. So we were just like, well, shit, we have to do something. Like we're not going to just, we have no idea how long this is going to last. Like, let's just do something. We can't just let our wheels spin like this. So we were like, how can we do this? What can we do? So Duncan, his family was, our drummer Duncan, his family, his wife and kid were in California visiting before lockdown. So they were stuck there. And they had just bought a house in upstate New York. So he's just like sitting around in an empty house filled with boxes. It's like, dude, just set your drums up in the living room. Like, let's see what we can do here. But he already knew all the songs. So he just set up his phone on a box and video himself playing drums. And he sent us the video, and it's like, damn, those newer iPhones, like they have stereo mics. Like they sound pretty good. I think we can do something with this. So like, to challenge myself, I was like, well, let me put this in Pro Tools. Let me like edit this and see if I can actually turn it into something. So we demoed like 2 or 3 songs, and I was like, this actually sounds pretty good. Like we can do something with this. So we ended up finishing 2 songs, and the idea was like, oh, we'll just drop them on Bandcamp, like just something, whatever. But then we're like, holy shit, like, is this COVID thing going to end? Like, how long are we going to be here? Maybe we should do more with this. We know other people are kind of like bored at home. So like, who can we get to do remixes? It just sort of like turned into a bigger conversation of what can we do to if we're not going to play shows, if we're not going to finish this record, can we do something more with it? So it ended up turning into this whole EP with these cool remixes. And yeah, it's crazy to think that like, yeah, I mean, Pelagic got on board. They were to press the Pelagic Records ended up pressing the LP, the vinyl. And like, you know, we got a box of them in the mail. It's like this gorgeous looking record. Those are iPhone drums. Like, what a time to be alive.
I think that's amazing. Like,
Thank
so you're
you.
telling me on the actual EP is iPhone drums from Pro Tools?
Yeah. We recorded it on an iPhone. I mean, like I added samples to the kick drum and the snare drum, but like Duncan's empty house sounded really good.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that just goes to show you that you should not be in creative pursuits. You should not be limited by anything.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You use whatever tools you have and you can get it done.
So real quick, Will, did you just so you just kind of like did like a mock up, like raw, like what the guitars are going to sound like, right? And then just sent it to him. And then he just basically did a playthrough in his living room.
Basically, yeah. I mean, but at that point we had already demoed out most of the record. So like we had pretty much a record ready to go, and it was time for him to come and do drums. So I was like, fuck it, let's just do it at home.
Okay. I thought maybe you were like, all right, let's just throw some scratch tracks at him and see what he gets, and then we'll build things around that. But no, okay, all right. So most of the record was already done at that point.
Well, I mean, but it wasn't finished. He definitely was like running stuff at home. Like we didn't have his finished parts in our hands yet. It was like we went back and forth over Zoom. Yeah, it was convoluted, man.
I love that spirit though of like, fuck it, let's just go. Like, let's just do it. I really appreciate that, because it's kind of like, you know, as much as, you know, whatever type of music you delve into, whether it's post rock or, you know, shoegaze, it's like that kind of ethos of that kind of punk rock. Like, no, we'll just make it work.
That's what we've always been.
That's so awesome.
Do you throw yourself into creative pursuits to deal with stuff, Will? Like this pandemic was kind of a lesson for me in I don't know, mental stability and figuring out things to do to just stay on the course. Like I got deep into YouTube and video games and all this stuff, but also this podcast. We got this podcast really rolling right when the pandemic hit, and it became a weekly thing. Are creative pursuits your survival mechanism, Will?
Yeah, I mean, making music has always been my survival mechanism. One of my quote unquote jokes this pandemic has been like, yeah, I don't know where you guys have been. This is how I've been feeling for years. Like, I just throw myself in front of speakers and just like, this is how I deal with the madness of the world, Yeah, I feel like you guys have actually touched on mental health stuff throughout the podcast when I've listened, and I appreciate that because, yeah, it's helpful, man. It's helpful to hear that other people go through it. And like, I know I'm a maniac that gets creative and overthinks stuff. And like, yeah, I don't know. I need to do it. I don't know another way to live through life and be happy without just constantly making music and being creative.
I've always been creative, but I got sidelined for about 2 decades when I kind of really got into drugs for a while.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I put that down, I cycled back into creative pursuits. Like that's how I'm happy. That's my happy, healthy, productive thing. Has that always been that for you, Will? Has there been things you've had to struggle to overcome or any detours along the way?
Sure. Actually, just real quick, I want to ask you though, was there an overlap with the creativity and the drug use where it spiked and made you feel like, oh, the drug use is helping with the creativity, or did it just sort of like one immediately overtook the other?
There was an overlap because even though I was on drugs, I managed to be in bands and put out records and that type of thing. But it eventually got to a point where all I did was the drugs, because if you're like broke and $30,000 in debt and have negative $1,000 in your bank account, you can't like buy an amp to join a band or I don't know. You don't have the desire to connect with people or put in the work or any of that stuff. So it's like, yeah, all that stuff just fades away over time. What are some of the stuff you've had to work through?
Boy, that's a big one. It's broad. I mean, I drink too much. I continue to drink too much. That's my biggest thing. It's always a balance of like balancing life and being positive and being creative with that like darker side of drinking. Like, there's that like one or two beer buzz that's perfect for like being creative and getting stuff done and being able to get up in the morning and still be a good dad. And then, during a pandemic, it's easy to slide into like, maybe got to take it easy, buddy. So yeah, I mean, my best and worst is that I'm able to, like, I'm good at it and I have to be careful about that.
That's where I was going to say, Will, that's where I was at, where this was pre-pandemic for me, but like, I either got really good at drinking or really bad at drinking, depending on, I guess, your perspective. And I think for me, it was like, it went back to I couldn't be a parent. Like I would wake up in the morning and it's like, my head is pounding, my stomach hurts. I feel like I'm going to throw up. And the kids are like, can we make eggs? And I'm like, yeah, hold on. You got to give me like half an hour and some Alka-Seltzer. I got to get some coffee in me. Like, it was just like this whole process. And it felt like every time I went through it, I was like, that's the last time I'm doing it. That's the last time. And that kept going over and over. But I exactly can understand what you're saying with that creativity part of it, though, because you do feel that first kind of flight of like, oh, this feels good and I feel fun and creative. And then there's a, diminishing return after that.
Can I ask you, did you allow it to become habitual, or did you get yourself out of it pretty quick, and what got you out of it?
Yeah, so what I did was I caught myself one time. It was a Saturday morning. I think I've told this story on here, but it was a Saturday morning, and I knew I didn't have anything to do all day. My wife and I were home. It was like the summertime. We're both teachers. It was the summertime, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have a drink. And I drank all day. And it was like
dangerous, buddy.
And I mean, I started at like 9:00 in the morning.
Oh, no.
And then by dinner, I'm like outside on the grill and I'm like, like plugging in the propane tank. And I'm like, geez, I'm like, pretty far deep on this bottle here. This has been a rough day. And then I'm like, all I could think about was the next morning and trying to wake up. And I was like,
right.
Oh, this isn't good. And I kind of made a decision after that day. I was like, yeah, I did that. Oh, I'm not going to drink liquor anymore. And then I got beers and I did the same thing with beer. And I was like, yeah, all right, you know what? Just no more drinking for a little while. And I just kind of cut myself off completely. I've gone back a couple times. Keith and I have had this conversation. He's always like, I don't know how you do it, but it's Christmas time. Like when I go around I have a bunch of sisters and, my mom, we'll get together tomorrow for Christmas Eve, and I'll probably have a couple drinks, but I know that I have that ability to go really far with it, and I don't let myself get to that point anymore.
Well, good for you, man.
I'm fascinated when Tommy tells me he's going to have a drink. I'm like, what? Like 1, 2? Like you can just stop? Like it's like a science experiment for me.
So Keith, do you not drink at all?
Nothing.
Good for you.
Yeah, I can't do anything. I am permanently suspended.
Good for you, man.
I've field tested every combination of everything that's out there, and it just ends with me almost dead, holed up in my apartment watching TV and doing nothing else.
Right.
And that's not a life.
No.
I got over all that, and now I'm here talking to you, Will.
Okay. But I mean, I'm curious to talk about this with other people too that have obviously been through stuff,
Everybody's story is different. Unfortunately, some people don't make it to this point. Some people die early. Some people stop early in the process, like Tommy. Me, I did it for close to 2 decades, varying degrees of badness, and then like 5 straight years of it being bad, and just getting to a point where I'm like, okay, I have to stop. And then, that was a whole process in and of itself as well.
Yeah, I still remember that phone call.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what are you doing? You're like, I'm going to a place for a while. I was like, really? Like, okay. All right. Well, call me when you're done and we'll talk. We'll figure this out. Like, all right. So probably sure you're not allowed to have your phone there. So good luck.
Tommy, one thing I do remember about that is I remember I was in a bad spot and you're like, hey, if you need any money or anything, let me know. And I was like, wow, Tommy's a good friend. He's going to give me money. Like, I was the last person that you should give money at that point.
Well, that's all I have. You were so far away. Like, it wasn't like I could be like, oh, let me go leave my wife and twins here and then drive up to New York. I was like, I can wire you money. Like, if you need cash, like I can get you whatever you need for the next few days. So you can.
I might still take you up on that.
It's not too late.
Yeah.
Well, there's exciting news on the horizon. SOM has a new record coming out on January 21st. It's an important day because The Shape of Everything is coming out, and it's also an important day because that just happens to be my birthday.
Hey, I love it.
You see how our lives are aligning, Will?
Everything is intertwined.
Exactly. So The Shape of Everything comes out January 21st on Pelagic Records, and because Tommy and I are such big players in the music world now, we got to hear the record, and I absolutely love it, folks. You're going to be in for a treat now. Let's talk about this record a little bit. When did we start recording it?
So at the same time we started working on the EP with all those remote drum recordings, that's when we started doing I guess we already had demos at that point. So, oh Jesus, even before that, like a year before that. Oh boy. Time has become a flat circle during this pandemic.
Tell us about the process of recording this thing. I read an interesting story where Joel, the guitar player, sent you a initial guitar recording for Animals. You got it around 3 or 4 in the morning, and then by 2 p.m. that day, you had vocals recorded for it.
Yes, that speaks to the way I work. Yeah. I get stuff. I think about it a lot and move forward. Yeah.
So in that specific instance, how did you come up with the vocals? Did you get inspired that day and just the lyrical content came to you? Did you have some stuff written already? What's your process?
So in that case, he sent me a demo called Animals. And I was just like, that's interesting. I wonder what he's thinking about. I had to run a bunch of errands that morning. I had to go to the dump. I think I had to go to the grocery store, just normal shit. And yeah, I don't know. It just comes out. I don't know. I used voice memo on my phone. I had the first idea and then I was like, oh, I think I hear a harmony too. And I don't know. I just recorded it all.
Yeah, that's interesting. It just comes to me sometimes too. Like I was in the shower yesterday morning and instead of having an imaginary argument with someone I'll never see again, half of a song came to me and I was like, yes, I'm back.
That's what I'm saying, man. You got to run from that shit and just run toward the creativity. That's all I do is just avoid the bad parts of your head and just run toward the creative parts of your head.
Exactly. That's the way to do it. So what are some of the themes that you sing about? What are some of the recurring themes that you sing about? And what are some of the themes on The Shape of Everything?
Well, it's not I tried to go a little broader on this record and make it things that people can kind of understand or think about in their own space. Just a lot of it is like being a new dad and like trying to look at the world and frame things more positively. It's something that I haven't been great about in the past, and something that I've been really working toward recently. It's just like, I got to dig myself out of the hole of just being depressed all the time and like giving, just trying to give back in like a more positive way. Like, I think that, it's important to recognize that things aren't shiny and great all the time, but it's as important to try to figure out a way out of it. So the record is a lot of just like playing with figuring that out.
What are you depressed about? What brings you down?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a weird thing. I don't know. I think it might just be chemical. It might be, I don't know.
So it's just something that you just wake up and you just feel like it's like everything kind of feels like heavy.
Yeah, I mean, I might be, saying it in such a short burst might be like overplaying it. Like, I've just been depressed my whole life. Like, not to say I'm always depressed. I'm certainly not. Like, I think things are hilarious. Like, if you come and hang out with me, like, we're going to laugh more than not. But yeah, just like I said earlier, like, when we talk about the pandemic, it's like, yeah, man, like, this is the reality. Like, a lot of fucked up shit's happening in the world, and it's heavy for a lot of people a lot of the time. And like, I'm just kind of always grappling with that and trying to keep it light.
And I'm curious about that, because I thought I was depressed for the longest time, but I'm not. I was just on elephant doses of depressants.
Okay.
So I felt depressed all the time. But as soon as I stopped that, I realized like I'm not a depressed person. I'm just anxious. I'm nervous.
I was going to say, I thought you were just anxious, right?
Yeah, anxious. Yeah. Overthink everything. Neurotic. That's my thing. So I don't really get depressed unless something happens. So if you're feeling bad when nothing is going on at all, really, if you just kind of feel bad, I guess it could be just a chemical thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's not all doom and gloom. Like, I wake up, I can get out of bed, I can do what I need to do. Like, it's not, I just have a low voice, and that's how I come across. But yeah, it's just like, it's just dealing with like having a daughter and like a child now. It's like, okay, I can't just talk and sound like this all the time. Like, I gotta like, keep it moving.
Exactly. How old is your daughter?
She turned 3 in October.
Oh, wow. Nice. I bet having a kid really changes things a lot. I sometimes just think about having a kid and I'll cry because I'm like, oh my God, I would show them this and we would do that. And I get so overwhelmed with emotion, and that's just a made up kid. Like, how are you dealing with the real kid, Will?
Yeah, it's a lot of crying. No, it's cool, man. It's it's like, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever experienced in your life, but also the most exhausting thing you've ever experienced in your life. And like, yeah, dude, I'm tired, man. She's had 2 colds in a month. Don't sleep through she was up yelling at 3 a.m. because I don't even remember what she wanted.
Yeah, that's been my reality for like the last month, is everybody's just been sick and passing it to each other.
Dude.
Keith and I had this conversation the other day, though. My daughter's learning.
How old is she?
So I have twins that are 8, and then she's a toddler now, but she's 2. I have another daughter that's 2. One of the 8-year-old twins is downstairs, and I have like a relatively small keyboard. Not like I think it's only whatever third of the size, like 33 keys or something like that, or 30 keys.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
And she's learning that it's new to me, the Adele song, Easy on Me.
Oh.
and I said to Keith, I was like, she's learning this song. I was like, have you ever heard it before? And he's like, no. And I was like, yeah, just go listen to this girl's voice. I'm not a big like solo singer type person, but man, it gave me goosebumps. And he was like, if I had a kid and I came home and watched them play piano, like trying to like struggle through learning how to play piano by themselves, he's like, I would be crying. And I'm like, well, I get extraordinarily proud of her because she'll spend hours by herself just playing. And
yeah, the song is so beautiful though. Like,
yeah,
I just imagined my hypothetical daughter learning that song, and I was like, oh, my heart.
Well, I got to say, the hypothetical daughter is much easier to deal with.
Yeah.
But Tommy, that's honestly, it's beautiful. Like, my daughter just started singing Jingle Bells in the car today, and it was like, holy shit, it's moving.
It really is, and it's one of the things that we're dealing with now is we're not having any more kids. So like we're like, all right, this is the last baby. So like, in my head, I'm getting up so early on Christmas morning because I need to be down. Everything needs to look perfect. This is going to be like my last like Little Baby Christmas, like where she's going to come down the stairs in feety pajamas, like that like wide-eyed, like, oh, look what Santa brought, like that type of thing. I was like, I can't wait. And in my head I'm going, 15, 20 years ago, I was punching people in the head at bars and like doing stupid shit. It's like, it's remarkable to look back. Kids are a great kind of milestone, but also something to kind of gauge where your life was and where it's going. They are a wonderful kind of compass to have.
Will, in addition to the classic bands you've been in, you also founded the Radar Studio in 2010, yes?
Yes.
Now, I've read that this is the first solar-powered studio in New England.
Yes.
Now, how? How do you do this? How do you find out about this? How does it work?
Okay. So when my wife and I were trying to find a house, we wanted to find the one that was cheap. And we found one that had a blown furnace. So we had no heat, hot water, or anything here. So when we were looking into like how to do it, at the time there was a federal refund and a state tax credit that actually made it pretty cheap to put solar panels on the house. So that's what we did. And it just became like a way of life for us.
So when you put the solar panels in, is it that simple? You put the panels in, you have electricity just like you would if you were paying the power company?
Yeah, it works just like electricity. So basically you tie into the grid, and we don't have a battery backup system. So we just send power to the grid when we're not using it, which is most of the time. And we take what we need from the grid. So we get, if we're able to send them enough power, we get a energy credit on our bills. I don't know if it's kind of convoluted. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I just think it's so interesting because you read about this stuff, but I never actually hear about anybody doing it. So you're telling me that we could have vegetable oil, diesel cars, and solar panels in our house. Like we could really do it.
Yes. And it's much, much, much cheaper than what you currently do.
And it's cheaper?
Way cheaper. Yeah, I mean, the thing with solar panels is like there is an upfront investment. All these companies out now that are trying to like get you to rent stuff to put on your house, they're fucking scams. Obviously it costs money to do the down payment to buy them, but if you look into there's always federal money that if you look into it you can get back, or usually depending on what state you live in, especially in Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, you can get tax credits every year. It's way cheaper. If you can throw down a little bit of money on a credit card, even put a few on your house, it will pay itself off within a few years, guaranteed.
Wow. So if the gas companies and energy companies hear this episode,
they're shutting us down, dude.
They're coming for us. We're done.
I've been spouting this off for a long time. They haven't shut me down yet.
We are going to revolutionize the world once this information gets out.
Look, biodiesel, solar panels.
Let's go.
I'm just telling you right now, I did not kill myself, but despite what everyone says.
Yeah. If the podcast suddenly stops, if we miss a week, somebody call Casey, tell him what's going on. It's not us.
All that talk about depression in the middle, we were just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right?
Amazing. So tell us about the studio. Is that what you're doing when you're not touring and recording?
Yeah. I mean, I since I've had a daughter, it's slowed down a little bit. I've been a little more selective about what I do, but yeah, I've been out here full time for like 6-7 years. I mix and master for bands. I record when I can. I do a lot of like production music for TV and advertising and stuff like that. It's cobbling a lot of things together to sort of make ends meet.
That's something I wanted to ask about, was the work you do for television and advertising. What kind of stuff do you do? Commercials, television shows? Lay it on us.
Yeah, all of it. Whoever will have me. It's a lot of like, honestly, the game nowadays is like you just write a bunch of music and hope it gets used. It doesn't even, like when I first started, it was like, oh wow, you can make like a few $100 a week up front and then like get decent back end. Nowadays, it's just like you got to just hustle, get stuff done, and hope there's back end, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But you just keep hustling, keep doing it, and it's been pretty like. So when we had our kid, I couldn't work for a few months, and the production stuff was just paying my bills for like 6-9 months. So it works.
How does it work? Does a TV show say, hey, we need a song that's kind of sad for this scene, or do they send you a clip of something? How does it work?
If you're lucky, like I've worked for bigger companies like Vice and Sony, where it's like, hey, we have X amount of money in our budget for this. Like, can you pitch it? Give us some ideas. More and more now, it's like there's just these blanket companies that are like, hey, we provide music for MTV, whatever, like, pick a minor network, Bravo or whatever. We just need a ton of music to throw at them because they've got a bunch of shows that need music. Like we need like Judge's Table, for example, is like a good one, like where we need stuff that goes shon, shon, or what, like whatever they need. So you just make 10 of those and you hope that one or two of them gets placed on a TV show. And then 6 months to a year later, you're like, oh, whoa, that one got placed. Cool. Here's some money.
Are you ever watching TV and you hear like, shoo, and you're like, that's my shoo.
So I had a funny, Ugly Delicious. Are you guys familiar with that one on Netflix?
No.
Yeah, minor show. So that's one of those where I was, it's like cooking show where it's like, oh, this is really good. I like this show. And I got into it. And I was like, wait a minute. That song sounds really familiar. Like I did that. Wait a minute. I haven't gotten paid for that. So I literally had to like send an email to ASCAP, which is like that's the company that pays you. Like they handle artist royalties. And I was like, so it's been like over a year and this isn't even in your system. Like, what happened? I still don't know what happened, but I finally started getting paychecks for it. Like, it's so funny. It's like, I wonder like how many of those that I have done that I haven't gotten paid for. Dude, come on, man.
Yeah, because like when you're doing specific work, like, hey, can you compose something that sounds like this? Great. But if you're just like essentially putting a portfolio out there and they can select from it, it's like you're just hoping that they go, maybe he doesn't see this. Like,
I've never met anybody that shady. Like I've dealt with some shady people, but everybody seems really like it's more up and up than indie rock, to be honest. They're all trying to make sure everybody gets paid. But yeah, just like it's such a volume business at this point. I hate to say. Like, you're just cranking out songs.
Do you put them all together yourself?
Yeah.
That's got to be a good deal. You got the studio, you just crank out music, you're sending it to TV shows. And the only part that sucks is like, you might not get paid. You have to like track somebody down to make sure you get paid.
Yeah. I mean, usually like that was an outlier as far as I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's honestly, it's a great business. It's just, it is a volume. Like, there's part of me that's like, people that do 9 to 5 work and they can just clock out and be done. Like that sounds pretty good. Like I'm definitely like, well, I don't know how much I'm going to get paid this quarter. So I just got to keep working and hope it works out. The other side of that is I love doing it. Like I'm working on some cues right now that are like Watchmen. I don't know if you guys watch that show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like stuff that's like Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross inspired. Like, dude, I could do that all day and it's super fun. I don't know if I'll get paid for it, but it's super fun.
It looks like the most fun thing. I that's something I want to do one day. I don't know if it's ever possible, but I look at movies and like picking the music or composing the music. It seems like one of the best things ever.
It is. Honestly, man, do it and like just pick a style, pick a show, pick a something, try it. And I can honestly send you in the right direction. Like there's so many companies out there that just like need music all the time.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, hit me up.
There you go, Tommy. That's the beginning of my career in putting music to things.
There you go.
Tommy's taking 10%.
Finder's fee is what they call it, right?
That's right.
There we go.
That's right, yeah.
So you have a solo electronic project, Living Phantom, as well. Are you still creating music under that project?
Yes, I want to. I have a bunch of stuff written that's just not finished. But yes, I plan to do more. I was actually just talking with Mike, our guitar player in SOM, about like that I should do some remixes for this new record. I haven't had time, but I want to.
So we talked about it in the beginning. You said the European tour with Catatonia that is now canceled.
Yes. Well, postponed until 2023.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
So do you have anything else coming up with SOM? Any gigs or tours or anything like that?
Not currently. We're kind of working on some stuff in the US, but we're, based on the COVID numbers right now, we're sort of taking a step back, unfortunately.
It's got to be frustrating because it seemed like things were getting somewhat better. Shows were happening again. Records are coming out again, just like the good old days. And now everything shutting down again and the unsure nature of everything creeping up again.
It is frustrating, but I also totally get it. Like, as someone who has a grandmother that's in her 80s and a daughter that's 3, it's like, I get it. Like, I'm not trying to make the world any worse.
That's the way to go. Now, there's a band I like. I won't say who. They were like, we're going to do a show. No COVID restrictions, no vaccine card needed. And I was like, no, that's not a good thing to advertise.
Yeah, we played with Paul Bearer at St. Vitus. And yeah, it was like, I mean, obviously, it sounds like Keith, like, you show your vax card, you go in.
Yeah.
And that was like before this new spike, and it was like, oh, this feels pretty good. I think we can do this. And then obviously the numbers start growing, and it's like, well, maybe we shouldn't do this for a little while. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem unreasonable to just like not play rock and roll in front of a lot of people for a few months if it's going to save people's lives. I don't know. Maybe that's not the rock and roll spirit, but like, whatever.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. We can wait a couple months. We did it. We're used to it now. It's part of our everyday life.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but like, whatever.
All right. So let's recap. Here's what we're going to do, folks. We're going to listen to Constance, right?
Yes.
You've got a lot of music out there. You just put out a record last year, Devotion. We want to check out the band if we haven't heard it yet, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. And we want to check out Living Phantom. That's your solo electronic project. We've got all different kinds of music, all different genres, right?
Yes.
And we want to book ourselves at the Radar Studio and be recorded with solar electricity.
Or maybe just get mixed because it's COVID times.
Or just get mixed. But with Will at the helm, you are guaranteed to sound golden, right?
I hope so, yeah.
And, of course, SOM has a new record coming out on Pelagic Records. It comes out January 21st, and it's called The Shape of Everything. If there's pre-orders, pre-order it now. Get this thing. Tommy and I have heard it. We love it. If you're a fan of the band, you're going to love it. And even if you're not a fan of the band, it's so good that you will become a fan of the band. Yes?
Tommy.
Yes. Wait, that was a question for you. Right?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I knew that he was deflecting to you, Tommy, but I just let it happen.
Okay. There's sometimes when you're like hyping up the record, I'm like, all right, I should jump in at some point, and then I'm like, no,
swinging the T-shirt around.
Yeah, I feel weird because then I'm like, yeah, no, what Keith said that you do that part. Like,
I'll get an air horn sound effect for our soundboard.
Do the
yeah, exactly.
Like that one. Yep,
that's exactly what I'm going to get. And we were going to fly to Europe to see SOM tour with Catatonia, but that is postponed until 2023, so we're not going to do that. But catch the band live. I've seen them a couple times now, and it's great. I love it. Will, thank you so much for being on the show. We're big fans of what you do, and we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, and we definitely appreciate that you dig the show.
Oh, guys, you guys are awesome. Thank you for talking to me.
There you have it, folks. Will Benoit. Excellent conversation. Excellent bands. In addition to SOM, Constance is a great band too. Have you dug into their discography, Tommy?
I haven't gone really deep with it. I've listened to probably like 4 or 5 songs, but yeah, they are great. They have a cool sound. That's the thing I really dig about them.
It's like post-rock, but it's not, and it has vocals. It's in the same neighborhood as SOM, just not as heavy. Really great stuff. And I've said it before, and of course I'll say it again. SOM is one of my favorite modern bands. I really like everything they've done. Like I told Will, I've been a fan of them since I saw their first show. I forgot that was their first show, Tommy, that I saw.
Oh, yeah. Who was that with?
Caspian.
All right.
What a lineup. 2 bands, Tommy, at St. Vitus. SOM and Caspian. Perfect show.
It's incredible. SOM does the thing really well that I always love about like that type of music is the build up to like the extremely heavy, but I get to use it. The brutality.
Yes. Yes.
I've been trying to fit that in for weeks.
I'm glad you remember that because I always forget that, and it's such a good term.
Beyond Caspian, SOM might be they do it so incredibly well. And again, it has that early, like that shifting era kind of Deftones where it's heavy, but it's also kind of like hauntingly beautiful. That's really like I love that sound.
Yeah, so thank you again, Will, for being on the show. It was really nice to talk to you. And let's see, Tommy, what did we do for New Year's Eve? You go first. Give me a recap.
My mom and stepdad came over. We ordered pizza, had wings. Those were the most expensive wings I've ever bought.
Why are they expensive?
I guess it's a supply chain thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were just saying like the price from whoever their supplier is went up. So a dozen wings cost $16.99.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like $1 plus per wing, but they were delicious, so it didn't matter. Ordered pizza. We watched Encanto, the new Disney movie, and the baby went to bed like normal time. She tells us when she wants to go to bed. She literally says nap. Like she'll just mouth it to you like it's time to go. Like I got to go upstairs, and she puts her head she'll rest her head on her hand and say like nap, and it's like okay. So she was in bed by 8. The girls stayed up a little bit later, maybe 9:45, but by then they kind of just start to peter out. So what we did last night was I just set an alarm clock on my phone just to wake us up at 11:55. So we get them up real quick, run downstairs, watch the ball drop, and then go right back to bed. Had a kind of rough night though.
Why? What happened?
Our dog is getting very old. She'll be 13 in February, and she really does not. She used to be better with it. I think in her older age, she's getting a little bit more anxious, but she does not like the fireworks. And, they legalized fireworks in Pennsylvania about a year and a half ago. So at the stroke of midnight, actually, let's just be honest, right around 10 o'clock.
It's Bucks County. There's fireworks all day, every day. It doesn't matter if there's a holiday or not.
In this, when that first summer, like last summer was the first summer I think that they were completely legal. It was from literally the middle of June to like the end of August, like the whole summer. You just heard fire, and it was like people were setting off like the really big, like pretty ones that you can see, like the aerial ones that go up and blow up, right?
Yeah.
In the middle of the day, you would hear them like that. Like that noise, and then like it's 5. Like it's not going to be dark for another like almost 4 hours. What is happening right now? Yeah, so the dog, we have a big, huge weighted blanket. It weighs about 25 pounds. So we put that on top of her and just lay with her. But the whole time she's laying there, she does this like kind of whimper kind of cry, and you can tell she's just uncomfortable. So that was a rough part because just getting her to fall asleep took about an hour. And then anytime you heard any fireworks after that, she would wake up and you have to start the whole process over again. So I used to have terrible sleep, or, I would feel terrible the next day on New Year's Day for different reasons. Today I'm very tired because my anxious dog was up.
Well, that's better than being hungover, right?
Oh my God. I'd say the main reason I stopped drinking like I did was because the hangovers were just unbearable. I just couldn't do it anymore. I'm such a sissy when it comes to being like even mildly put out. Like, oh, I have a slight headache and my stomach hurts. It's like, oh, I can't do this. Like, so I'm just such a sissy with stuff like that. I just finally got to the point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. But yeah, that's it. That's a nice waking up on New Year's Day with not having to look at my phone and be like, who did I text? What did I post online? Like that kind of like, oh God, what did I say to that person? Because I know they texted me. Like, did I go on a 20-minute rant? No? Okay, good. I actually remember now what I did. So that's phenomenal. How was your New Year's Eve?
It was good. I went and ate at Katz's famous New York City delicatessen with some friends in the Village. Guess how much a sandwich is there, Tommy? You'll die at this.
I've seen those sandwiches. It's a lot of lunch meat. So I don't like $35?
28.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The whole meal was 35, which is actually not too bad.
No, because you take home a lot, right?
No.
Oh. Wait, so what did you get? Did you get corned beef? Like what did you get?
Pastrami on rye. I split a side of fries with my friend and a soda. So the whole thing with tip ended up being $35 for me. But the place is fantastic. It was good. It was good to be out because if I'm glad that some of the volunteer gig stuff that I'm doing is lining up perfectly with Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, some key dates. So I get out, I see people, and then I go out and hang out with people afterwards. So it's all lining up, Tommy, which is great because when I don't feel motivated to do things most of the time. So when I sit inside and just sit on the computer all day and play video games and work, that's fun, but it's not very spiritually fulfilling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that. Actually, it's funny. You just talked about volunteering. I just signed up yesterday. So I'm going to be doing Saturday mornings for the last 3 weeks of January. So I think it's the 15th, the 22nd, and then the 29th. Saturday mornings from 9 until 12, I'll be teaching chess as part of a mentoring program.
You're going to be teaching chess?
Yeah.
You know how to play chess?
I know how to play.
All right. Well, we're going to circle back because this is my time, Tommy. You see you see how you're seizing it back from me and taking us off course.
I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
All right. I went to Katz's. I ate with some friends. I came home and watched my favorite Warzone streamer, Iron. He had the world record for most wins in the game. He'll stream for like 35 hours straight.
Really?
Yes.
Does he eat during it?
No.
Wow.
Yeah. I think he used to be a weightlifter, so he probably does some crazy, pre-gaming, eat a bunch of food, drink a bunch of supplements thing.
Okay.
Plays for 35 hours, crashes, and then does it all over again.
What's his name again? Iron?
Iron.
Okay.
So I watched that. I fell asleep before midnight, and then I woke up at 12:07 a.m., I think.
Okay.
And fired off a bunch of texts and Happy New Year's and all that stuff to everybody, and then went back to sleep. But before I went out, Tommy, something happened, and I have to tell you about it now.
Okay.
Now, I broke the window on my computer. On my desktop PC, on these gaming PCs, there's like a...
Oh, the thing you can see inside the computer.
Yeah, like on these gaming desktop PCs, there'll be the side will often be clear. There'll be like a clear glass type thing.
Yeah.
So I was in the middle of a game of Warzone, right? And something happened and I moved my mouse all the way to the right. And I guess I knocked my phone off the desk or something. I don't know what happened. And I didn't even hear it happen, but I was like, oh no, something bad happened. And I looked down and the glass is shattered everywhere. The cover of the computer was completely shattered. There was glass all over the floor. But Tommy, I am a true soldier because I kept going, I kept playing the game, and we won.
Oh, that's good.
And then I spent about an hour cleaning up the glass. So all in all, it was a good night. I did everything I wanted to do. I saw people. It was good.
Sounds like a really productive night.
It was.
That's good because I always think of compare it to New Year's Eves in the past.
All right. There's a lot of different factors here. When I was still getting high and drunk and happy, I always thought it had to be like the biggest, craziest night ever. I have to buy as many drugs as I can. I have to go to as many parties as I can. It has to be this big, explosive thing. And I would always end up disappointed because it's just another night.
Yeah.
And then there was the years of addiction of just being alone and sitting inside and getting high by myself. And that was sad. And then there was like early recovery, sitting inside alone, not high by myself because I don't have anything to do. And now there's things to do. So it's there's been many eras, Tommy. There's been many eras. I guess many eras of disappointment leading to now.
I was going to say though, I like the evolution of that though. The trajectory you're on is a positive one. It's gone from, big disappointments to isolation to a different type of isolation to now being out with friends and doing fun things and enjoying life and feeling like you're part of something bigger.
Exactly. Do you have any resolutions for 2022, Tommy?
I was actually thinking about this. No. I do want to continue. I've been on a really good streak with after work getting stuff done early so that the girls are in bed early so that I have time to do something for myself, whether that's reading or working out or playing guitar. My real resolution is to spend more time playing guitar and playing piano. I want to get better at piano.
Yes, I would love to do that too, but I always fall short. Like I'm like, hey, I'm going to learn this song, and then I just never do. So it just must not be time yet.
Yeah, I actually, well, I sent you the video. I learned some of that Adele song, and then I taught it to Evelyn, and so she's been figuring out a lot of it just by watching YouTube videos. I try not to watch the YouTube videos. I try to do it by ear, which is infinitely more difficult, especially for me that I don't have the ear training. But I'm trying to slowly get myself into being able to listen to it and then find the notation so that I can learn how to play it. Sometimes that leads me to playing it in a way that's incorrect. So then I have to unlearn everything. But I feel like that's a better process for me, because then rather than just watching something and repeating it, I feel like I'm learning a little bit more about how to play piano and how my fingers should move, and the notes should be combining.
I watched the YouTube video because there's a lot of keys to hit. I'm never going to figure all that out.
I think the thing for me has been, I try to just listen to one part. Like I'll just try to listen to my left hand with like the bass hand, and try to figure out what the main notes, like try to figure out what the bass line is and move from there. Because once I figure out what the main notes are for the bass, like that Adele song only has 4 bass notes that you're playing. And then the real like bulk of the song that is taking me the most time is trying to like match the actual right hand, which is the part that most people are familiar with. That's the kind of higher key part that people listen to.
My resolution for this year is to just stay on top of my recovery practice, because I cut back a bit in 2021 just because I was so busy with everything else and I got into a bad headspace. And I just want to stay vigilant in 2022, because when I stay vigilant, when I stay on top of it, I'm just a better person in general. I'm less unhappy in a lot of ways. I'm just generally better. That's really the only thing I need to stay on top of, because I'm very happy in every other aspect of my life right now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good. So you're just isolating things that you're like, all right, everything else is working. These couple things aren't. Let's focus on these. I love it.
Yeah, because I cut back. I'll be like, hey, I only need to do this much. And then I find myself a lot more unhappy, a lot shorter fuse, getting irritated with people and all this stuff. And that's not the kind of person I want to be.
Yeah, I love that. It's the process of self-development.
Yes, just like, wait, that's an album.
Candiria.
Yes.
It always comes
classic.
It always comes back to Candiria.
It should.
And Korn.
It should always come back to Candiria and Korn as far as we're concerned.
Yeah, Korn doesn't have any really inspirational titles.
That's it, folks. Listen, we're in a new year now. We're going to be here for the entire year with you, and it's going to be great. So from Tommy and I to you, we wish you a happy new year. We're going to have another exciting year of shows. We're going to have another exciting year of guests, and it's going to be great. Right, Tommy?
I'm excited.
Yes. Listen to how excited we are.
Yeah, just over the moon. My thing is we are. I don't know how much we can divulge about this, but we're ahead in terms of recording, and that makes me feel really good.
Yes. Being ahead makes me much less anxious, and I'm happy about that. Being ahead is where we want to be.
Yeah.
In the show and in life. How about that?
I like that. Good connection.
Yes. So that's it, folks. We're back next week with another new show and another new guest. Enjoy the season. Enjoy the year. We'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And until next time.